I am sitting in my corner office right now watching the city lights flicker through these floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone buzzes on the mahogany desk. The screen lights up with one word: Mom. My finger hovers over the answer button for what feels like an eternity. I finally pick up. Her voice cracks before she even says hello. Milton, you have to help your brother. The business is collapsing. Everything is falling apart. I sit there in silence, my eyes fixed on the skyline, remembering the exact moment they handed everything to Garrett instead of me. That hollow, crushing feeling rushes back like it was yesterday. I already knew my answer before Mom finished her sentence. Before I take you through the most defining decision of my entire life, let me know where you are watching from. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you believe fairness should matter more than family obligation. Now let me take you back to the beginning to show you exactly how I got here. My father opened our building supply company when I was just 12 years old. I can still picture that first day walking into the warehouse on the outskirts of our town. The smell of fresh cut lumber mixed with concrete dust filled the air. Dad was there from sunrise to well past sunset, working 16-hour days without complaint. Mom sat in this cramped back office with a space heater that rattled and barely kept her fingers warm enough to write in the ledgers. I loved being there. After school, I would hop on my bike and ride straight to the warehouse. I would sit on stacks of 2x4s and watch Dad negotiate prices with contractors. His voice firm, but fair. He taught me how to read inventory sheets, how to spot quality materials, just by touch, how to remember every customer's name and what they needed. Those afternoons felt like the best education I could ever get. My brother Garrett was 3 years older. He never came around much. He was always off somewhere with his friends working on that beat-up Camaro he loved or hanging out at the arcade downtown. Dad never pushed him. Whenever I asked why Garrett did not help out, Dad would just wave his hand and say, "Your older brother needs his space to figure things out." I accepted that. I figured there was plenty of time for both of us to be involved. Maybe Garrett would find his way eventually. By 16, I was working part-time at the warehouse every day after school and all weekend. I learned the system inside and out, how to process purchase orders, how to manage inventory counts, how to load trucks efficiently so nothing got damaged. I memorized the names of every contractor who walked through our doors. Old Tommy, who ran the biggest framing crew in the county, started bringing me coffee on Saturday mornings. He would ruffle my hair and tell me I had a natural gift for this work. Garrett showed up occasionally, maybe once every few weeks. He would complain about how hot it was, how dusty everything got, how early we had to start. He never stayed longer than a couple hours before finding some excuse to leave. I did not mind. I figured it just meant more opportunity for me to prove myself, to show Dad I was serious about this. When I graduated high school, I enrolled at the State University for Business Administration. Every single weekend, I made the 2-hour drive back home to work at the warehouse. While my classmates were at parties or sleeping in, I was helping Dad unload delivery trucks and process orders. I took everything I learned in my classes and brought it back to the business. Supply chain management, customer relationship strategies, financial forecasting. I saw opportunities everywhere. During my junior year, I suggested we transition from Dad's old clipboard system to a digital inventory management program. He was resistant at first. He liked his handwritten notes, his familiar routine. But I showed him the numbers, how much time we could save, how we could reduce errors, how we could track our stock levels in real time and never run out of high-demand items. He finally agreed to try it for 3 months. Within the first year, after implementing that system, our revenue jumped 20%. Orders were processed faster. Customers were happier. We had fewer mistakes and less waste. Dad pulled me aside one evening after closing and put his hand on my shoulder. "You are the future of this company, son. I mean that." Those words felt like a promise, like everything I was working toward was finally being recognized. After graduation, I came back full-time. Dad gave me the title of operations manager and a small office next to his. I threw myself into the work with everything I had. I streamlined our delivery process, cutting our turnaround time from 24 hours down to 8. Contractors loved it. They could order in the morning and have materials on site by afternoon. Our reputation spread fast. I spent months building relationships with the major contractors in our region. I learned their schedules, understood their needs, anticipated problems before they happened. When the biggest construction company in the area put out bids for a supply contract, I worked for 3 weeks straight, preparing our proposal. We won it. That single contract brought in enough consistent business for Dad to open a second location across town. I helped him set up that second warehouse from the ground floor, hired the staff, organized the layout, established the systems. Within 6 months, it was operating as smoothly as the original location. Garrett worked in the main office during this time. He had some vague administrative role that mostly involved answering phones and filing paperwork. He came in late most mornings and left early whenever he could, but I did not worry about it. I thought my results would speak for themselves. Dad kept telling people I was the backbone of the entire operation. Mom would beam with pride whenever customers praised my work ethic. I believed with absolute certainty that when the time came for Dad to retire, the business would be mine. I had earned it. I had built it alongside him. Then came that Friday evening in late September. Dad called a family meeting at the house. Mom spent all afternoon cooking, making all my favorite dishes. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, her famous apple pie. The dining room table was set with the good china we only used for holidays. Something felt off, but I pushed the feeling aside. I assumed Dad was finally going to talk about succession planning, maybe discuss his retirement timeline. We all sat down. Dad at the head of the table, Mom to his right, Garrett across from me. Dad cleared his throat, folded his hands, and spoke in this formal tone I had never heard before. I have made a decision about the future of the business. After a lot of thought and discussion with your mother, I have decided to give the company to Garrett. Time seemed to stop. I felt my whole body go rigid. Garrett was grinning, not even trying to hide how pleased he was. I looked at Mom, desperate for her to say something to intervene. She was staring down at her plate. Dad continued talking, his voice steady and final. Garrett is the oldest son. In our family, the business passes to the firstborn. That is how my father did it, and that is how I am doing it. Besides, Garrett needs this responsibility. It will help him mature, give him purpose. My voice came out shaky when I finally managed to speak. What about everything I have done? What about the last 10 years? Dad looked at me with something like sympathy, but his decision did not waver. Milton, you are talented. You will be fine wherever you go. You have proven you can succeed at anything. Garrett needs this more than you do. You will stay on as vice president of operations and continue supporting your brother. This is what is best for the family. I pushed my chair back and stood up. The room was spinning. Nobody said anything as I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove. I drove for hours, windows down, trying to process what had just happened. Tradition, responsibility. Those were the reasons my father chose to give everything I built to someone who had barely showed up. The first Monday under Garrett's leadership felt surreal. He moved into Dad's old office, the big corner one, with windows overlooking the warehouse floor. He rearranged all the furniture, hung up posters of sports cars, and moved my desk out to a cramped corner near the supply closet. Then he started making changes, big changes. He switched to a new lumber supplier because his buddy from high school offered him a kickback. The quality dropped immediately. Within 2 weeks, we had contractors calling to complain about warped boards and incorrect dimensions. I brought the issue up in our first management meeting, trying to be diplomatic, presenting the customer feedback data. Garrett cut me off mid-sentence. I am the CEO now. Final decisions are mine. If you cannot support my leadership, maybe you should not be here. The staff noticed everything. The warehouse workers who had been there for years, the ones who respected Dad and appreciated how I ran things, they started whispering in the break room. Morale plummeted. Garrett hired 3 of his friends for management positions. None of them had any experience in our industry. They treated the warehouse like a hangout spot, taking long lunches, leaving early, making jokes while everyone else worked. One of our most loyal customers, Mr. Harris, called me directly one afternoon. He had been doing business with us for over 10 years. His voice was strained. "Milton, what in the world is going on over there? I just received a shipment of drywall that is completely wrong. Wrong thickness, wrong quantity. This is the 3rd mistake in a month. I have deadlines." I apologized profusely and fixed his order personally, but I had no authority to address the root problems. I had no power to change suppliers back or fire Garrett's incompetent friends. Every suggestion I made was dismissed. Every concern I raised was ignored. Garrett started seeing me as competition instead of support. 3 months into his reign, things came to a head. A customer had a shipping emergency. Their order had been sent to the wrong site, and they needed materials immediately, or their entire crew would be sitting idle. I grabbed the keys to a delivery truck and handled it myself like I had done 100 times before. When I got back, Garrett was waiting in the warehouse, his face red with anger. He started yelling at me in front of everyone. The drivers, the inventory staff, the office workers. Everyone stopped what they were doing and watched. "You do not make decisions without clearing them through me first. You do not take trucks. You do not talk to customers. You are undermining my authority, and I will not tolerate it." I stood there humiliated while my coworkers looked away in discomfort. That night I barely slept. The company I had poured my heart into for over a decade was crumbling, and there was nothing I could do about it. By month 4, our revenue had dropped 30%. Major contractors were taking their business elsewhere. The ones who stayed were frustrated and considering leaving. Garrett blamed the economy. He blamed the competition. He blamed seasonal fluctuations. He blamed everyone except himself and his disastrous decisions. I could not take it anymore. I asked to meet with my parents privately away from the office. We sat in their living room, the same room where Dad had announced his decision. I laid out everything: the lost customers, the quality issues, the staff turnover, the declining revenue. I showed them spreadsheets, customer complaints, financial projections. I begged them to reconsider, to let me take over before it was too late. Dad shook his head slowly. "You cannot undermine your brother's position. He is learning. He needs time. You need to be patient and supportive." Mom reached across the coffee table toward me. "Milton family has to stick together. We cannot have division. This will blow over." I realized in that moment they would never choose me. Not over Garrett, not over their idea of tradition, not over their need to believe they had made the right choice. I drove home in a daze. That night I sat at my kitchen table and wrote my resignation letter. I kept it professional, brief, respectful. I printed it out, put it in an envelope, and left it on Dad's desk before sunrise the next morning. When Dad read it, he called me into his office. His face was tight with disappointment. "Is this really what you want?" "It is what I need to do," I said. He did not argue. He did not try to convince me to stay. He just nodded and said, "I hope you know what you are doing." Garrett was thrilled when he heard. He actually smiled and said, "Finally, now I can run this place without someone constantly second-guessing me." Mom cried when I stopped by the house to say goodbye, but she did not ask me to reconsider. She did not admit they had been wrong. She just hugged me and said she hoped I would visit soon. I packed my personal belongings into a single cardboard box. A few books, some photos, a coffee mug a customer had given me as a thank you gift. I walked out of that warehouse without looking back. I found a tiny apartment across town. One bedroom, thin walls where I could hear my neighbors arguing, but the rent was cheap and it was mine. I needed income immediately. Summit Building Materials. One of our competitors had a help wanted sign in their window. I walked in and asked for an application. The owner, a woman named Catherine, interviewed me herself. She was in her early 60s, sharp-eyed with gray hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her husband had died 5 years earlier and left her the business. She asked tough questions. Why was I leaving my family's company? What did I know about the industry? What could I bring to her team? I was honest. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. I believe you, she said. I'm giving you a shot as sales manager. Do not make me regret it. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I studied every aspect of Catherine's operation. Her logistics system, her vendor relationships, her marketing approach, her customer service philosophy. I came in early and stayed late. I took notes. I asked questions. I absorbed everything she was willing to teach me. Catherine gave me freedom to experiment, to try new strategies, to implement ideas. She trusted me in a way my own father never had. At night, I would sit at my small kitchen table with a notebook sketching out plans, dreaming about what I could build if I had the chance, calculating what it would take to start my own company someday. I saved every penny I could. I ate cheap meals, drove my old car into the ground, did not spend money on anything unnecessary. After 2 years at Summit, I had a decent amount saved. I went to the bank and applied for a small business loan. I had a solid business plan, references from Catherine, and financial projections that showed I knew what I was doing. They approved it. I found a small warehouse space for rent on the industrial side of town. It needed work, but the price was right. I spent 3 weeks cleaning it, painting, setting up shelving, installing a basic computer system. I named my company Apex Construction Supply. The logo was simple. The mission was clear. Exceptional service through modern efficiency. My strategy was different from how my family had operated. I built a professional website where contractors could browse our inventory, place orders online, and track their deliveries in real time. I kept my prices competitive by negotiating smart deals with suppliers. I focused on quality and reliability, and I targeted the small to mid-size contractors, the ones who got overlooked by bigger companies. The first month was terrifying. I had 5 total orders. 5. I was hemorrhaging money on rent, utilities, and loan payments, but I delivered each order myself. I showed up on time, made sure everything was correct, introduced myself to every customer personally. I told them if they ever had a problem, they could call me directly. That personal touch started to matter. Word spread slowly at first, then faster. Old customers who remembered me from my family's business started showing up. They said they had heard I was back in the game and wanted to give me their business. Tommy, the veteran framing contractor, who used to bring me coffee, walked into my warehouse one morning. He looked around, nodded approvingly, and said, "About damn time you did this, kid. You were wasted over there." He gave me his account that day. 6 months and Mr. Harris found me. He walked through my door unannounced, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Milton, I do business with people I trust, not with company names. I am done with your family's circus. You have got my account." He signed a contract right there that covered 3 months of my overhead. I could have cried with relief. Apex started growing. I hired my first employee, then 3 more, then 10. By the end of year 1, I had 20 people on staff. I opened a second warehouse location in year 2. I brought in a digital marketing specialist to build our online presence. I invested in fleet vehicles with our logo on the side. I created a company culture based on competence, fairness, and respect. Meanwhile, through the grapevine, I heard about what was happening at my family's company. More lost contracts, suppliers refusing to extend credit, key employees jumping ship. I did not go looking for this information, but people talked. The industry is small. Everyone knows everyone. Doug, one of the longtime warehouse managers for my family's business, showed up at Apex one day asking for a job. Over coffee, he filled me in on everything. Milton, it is a nightmare over there. Garrett has no clue what he is doing. Your parents are scrambling to fix things, but they do not understand operations like you did. They look exhausted. Honestly, I think they regret everything. That brings me back to where this story started. Sitting in my office looking at my phone, seeing Mom's name on the screen. I picked up and her voice was desperate in a way I had never heard before. Milton, I know we were wrong. I know we hurt you. But this is still your family. The business your father built is about to collapse. Garrett cannot fix it. We need you. Please. I asked her where Garrett was. Why was he not the one calling? She hesitated. He is too ashamed to talk to you. He knows he failed. That evening, Dad called. His voice sounded smaller, older, defeated. Milton, I am asking you as your father. I know I was not fair to you. I made a mistake choosing tradition over merit. But please do not let everything I spent 30 years building just disappear. Help us. I asked him if he remembered what he said to me, that I would be fine wherever I went. He went silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, I was wrong to say that. Garrett never called me himself. Mom mentioned he was too embarrassed, too broken to reach out. She said he was drinking heavily, barely leaving his apartment. Part of me felt sympathy. Part of me felt nothing at all. I did not sleep that night. I sat up in my living room staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the decision. One part of me remembered being a kid at that warehouse with Dad, learning the business, feeling proud to be his son. Another part remembered the humiliation of being yelled at in front of my staff, the betrayal of being passed over the years of my work, being dismissed. I thought about Catherine, who took a chance on me when I had nothing, about Tommy and Mr. Harris, who trusted me enough to bring their business to a startup, about my 20 employees who depended on Apex for their livelihoods, about everything I had built from scratch when my family said I would just be fine. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove to the bank and picked up a brochure about emergency business loans. Back at my office, I wrote a note by hand on my personal stationery. Mom and Dad, I hope you can understand that Apex Construction Supply has to be my priority now. I cannot abandon the people who believed in me when you chose not to. I have attached information about business loan programs that might be able to help your situation. I genuinely wish you the best. Milton. I put it in an envelope with the brochure and mailed it. I did not call them back. For 3 days straight, they called repeatedly. I did not answer. I needed them to understand this was my final decision. On the 4th day, Mom called again. This time, her voice was ice cold. You are heartless, Milton. Selfish. We raised you, fed you, gave you everything, and this is how you repay us by watching us drown. I stayed calm. You gave Garrett every opportunity, every advantage. Now it is time for him to take responsibility for his own choices. Dad sent me a text message later that day, just one line. You will regret this decision for the rest of your life. I did not respond. Word got around town quickly. Some people thought I was justified. Others called me cold, ungrateful, a bad son. There were whispers at the hardware store, at church, at the coffee shop downtown. I heard the gossip. I felt the judgment. But I also noticed something else. My business did not suffer. In fact, more customers came to Apex. Contractors who respected someone who stood by their principles. People who understood that loyalty has to go both ways. One afternoon, a new client came in. He shook my hand and said, I heard what happened with your family. I respect a man who knows his worth and does not let anyone take advantage of him, even if they are family. You have got my business." That kept happening, again and again. 6 months after I sent that letter, I heard through the industry network that my family's company had filed for bankruptcy. The assets were liquidated to pay back creditors and the bank. The warehouses were sold. The inventory was auctioned off. Mom and Dad had to sell their big house, the one I grew up in, and move into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Garrett left the state entirely. Rumor had it he took a low-level sales job for some company in Arizona. I did not reach out to him. He did not reach out to me. Apex kept growing. Over the next 2 years, we opened 3 more locations. I hired a full management team. We brought in consultants to optimize our operations. By the time I turned 35, Apex was doing $15 million in annual revenue. Industry publications started covering our growth. I was invited to speak at conferences about building a business from the ground up. A local business magazine did a feature story calling me a success story born from ashes. 2 years after the bankruptcy, I got an email from Mom. Just a few lines. She wanted to meet for coffee. No demands this time, just a request. I agreed, curious what she wanted to say. We met at a quiet cafe near her new apartment. She looked older, tired. Her hair had gone mostly gray. We sat across from each other with our coffee cups between us. She spoke first. "Milton, I need to say this. Your father and I were wrong. We made a terrible mistake. We should have given the business to you. We should have trusted what you built instead of clinging to some outdated idea about birth order. I am sorry. I know it is too late, but I need you to hear it." Dad reached out a few weeks later. We met for lunch. He looked smaller somehow, less sure of himself. He said almost the same thing. "Son, I am proud of what you have built. I should have said that years ago. I should have seen your value instead of trying to force Garrett into a role he was never suited for. I hope you can forgive me someday." I was not angry anymore, but I was not the same person either. Too much had changed. I told them I appreciated the apologies, and I meant it, but I could not go back to how things were before. That trust had been broken in a way that could not be fully repaired. We agreed to stay in touch, to meet up occasionally, birthdays, holidays. We kept things cordial, but distant. The closeness we once had never came back. I got married at 36 to someone who understood my story, who respected my journey. We had 2 kids. I made sure to teach them about fairness, about earning what you receive, about the importance of keeping your promises. I built Apex into a true family business, one where people advance based on what they contributed, not on what their last name was or where they fell in the birth order. Now, sitting here in this office I built looking out at the city, I can honestly say I do not regret my choice. The pain taught me resilience. The betrayal taught me to build something that could never be taken away. I learned that titles and promises mean nothing without follow-through. That tradition is never an excuse for injustice. That sometimes the people who love you the most can hurt you the deepest. And that sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is knowing when to walk away. The empire I built is not just about money or market share or locations. It is proof that your value does not get decided by other people. It gets decided by you. If someone cannot see what you are worth, that is not your failure. That is your opportunity to go somewhere else and show the world what you can really do. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Have you ever walked away from people you loved because staying would have destroyed you? I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below. And if this story meant something to you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you never miss another story about standing up for yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my journey. I hope it reminds you that you are worth more than anyone's low expectations, more than anyone's broken promises. Keep building your own empire, whatever that looks like for you. Stay strong out there.